If you can't say no to people, you can't say no to food. I used to think those were two separate problems. They're really not. They're the same muscle. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why your health goals are falling apart. The one thing that was holding me back for years was not having boundaries. Not just with other people, but with myself too. Because if you never learn to say no to yourself, you're never going to be able to say no to anyone else. Therefore, your life will never truly be yours. Your feelings themselves are not the problem. Whether you feel angry, you feel tired, feeling like you can never catch a break, none of that in itself makes you a bad dad. The real problem is when those feelings become your master instead of just something you're managing. The main idea of this video is understanding boundaries with yourself and others. But before you do that, you have to understand a few principles. And stick around to the end because I'm going to give you an exact step-by-step process that's going to help you get there yourself. It took me about 30 years to truly get my boundaries under control, and I don't want it to take that long for you because they truly did set me free. The first thing I want to talk about is anger and handling anger. Unmanaged anger will not only sabotage your health goals, it'll sabotage everything else in your life. When it comes to being a Christian, anger itself isn't a sin. Feeling anger is a normal emotion. Anger only truly becomes an issue when it becomes the driver instead of the passenger, when you let it take over you. From a very young age, I was around people who would get angry very easily. So I saw secondhand what that actually looked like, and it made them miserable. It not only made them miserable, it made everyone around them miserable, and it made people not want to be around them. It made the whole atmosphere grimmer. It made everything uncomfortable, whether that meant somebody raised their voice, created a scene in public, started something that shouldn't have even been brought up. Growing up, I very quickly learned what the healthy way is to handle anger and what the unhealthy way is. Over the past 3 years, I've really buckled down on becoming more firm with my boundaries. And in doing so, instead of turning to drugs or alcohol, I would rely on exercising and movement and meditation, solitude, separating myself from the situation and spending time with God. That's really been the biggest cure for me and the biggest game changer. In fact, I think the best thing you can do in a situation where you get angry, say with your spouse, for example, is to remove yourself from the situation. Because the longer you stick around when you're in that red position, the worse it's going to be for both of you, because you're going to say stuff you regret that you don't mean, and it's just going to do more harm than good. And I say red because after going to therapy, after practicing methods to handle anger and stress and depression and anxiety, something that's worked for my wife and I is to say how we're feeling with a color. Now, this is very simple, but it works. We could be green, yellow, orange, or red. Green means we're okay, we're good, everything's nice. Yellow means that we're slightly annoyed with each other. Orange means that we are getting angry and getting to a point where we need to step away. And red means that you can't even talk to each other. You have to leave the room and we can't even be around each other because nothing good happens in the red zone. And even just with my wife and I communicating this color system to each other, it's been a game changer. Examples of this are all over scripture as well. When we look at James chapter 1, verses 19 through 20, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. So, in the context of this, James is writing to scattered, suffering believers about how to live out real faith day by day. And this comes right before his teaching that true religion controls the tongue and cares for others. Anger is framed as something that gets in the way of righteous living, not a minor character flaw. In other words, your anger controls your character. You don't want to be labeled as somebody who gets angry and gets bitter. And the more trust you have in God, the less you're going to be angry because you have that trust in Him. I don't know about you, but if you've ever been really angry, it sucks. It feels horrible. It just makes everything worse. It makes spiraling more possible. It just puts everything in a grimmer mood, in a grimmer spot. It ruins the whole day. And that's because anger is not from God. Psalm 103, verse 8, the Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love. We should all strive for that. David wrote that psalm to bless the Lord for his character, for his people. Slow to anger is one of God's defining traits. But with all this said, anger is not the root problem. The root is what's underneath it. And that brings me to the next point, which is patience. Patience may be the most important trait for a human being to have. I've seen it from a young age. While anger really cripples others around you, being impatient cripples yourself more than anything else. Until you learn to let go and realize that God's timing is perfect, you're not going to understand what being patient means. Now, when you think of patience, you may think of something like an event that you're waiting for, or a certain day in your calendar, or something to happen in your life, right? When I think of patience, a big proponent of that is people around you and controlling other people. You have to learn that you cannot control other people. You can't control what others think, and you especially can't control what other people do. And realizing that you have no control over this will set you free. Because while you can want people to do and think certain ways, you realize that it's okay if they don't. It's freeing to understand that you don't have control, because you don't have any expectations that way. I don't say that to be negative. I say that because when you don't have any expectations for something, there's no room to be disappointed in them or yourself. It just puts you in that mind frame to be open-minded and just to be happy by default, just to learn to find joy in any scenario. And that's something that I've done. It helps me realize that God is the author and he is the one who holds the pencil, and I'm simply just one of the characters. And I only have so much control over what I do as an individual, but I realize that I cannot control people in my family. I cannot control my daughter. I cannot control my wife. I cannot control my friends, my family, my peers, people in the workplace, right? And that's okay, because at the end of the day, we can only do everything we can, and God's going to get us through. That's what trust and faith is. It's, of course, in God, and it's also in other people. We have to trust and have faith that everybody else will do their part and be around for their specific purpose and reasons. Now, I just want to clarify here, too, that wanting things to go certain ways isn't wrong. Like, if you want scenarios to go one way and it goes another and you get frustrated, that's normal. Similar to what I said about the anger, the shift happens when that feeling starts calling all the shots. When you're reacting to that frustration of something not going your way, rather than practicing the patience itself. When you lash out on others around you. When you go up to the counter and make a scene at an airport or a public place. When you belittle your waiter in a restaurant because something's not the way you wanted it. When you have that feeling of entitlement and feeling to put somebody else down when they unintentionally did something that you didn't like, that's when it becomes not okay. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to do the best we can to get through this crazy ride we call life. And it's not easy. Some days are going to be better than others, and none of us are perfect. All of us fall short in the glory of God. We were never meant to control other people. Patience is the essence of trusting God. Galatians chapter 5, verse 22 to 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. So earlier in the chapter, Paul is contrasting human works with the Spirit. And patient isn't listed as something that you have to force. It's fruit, meaning that it grows out of the Spirit. It grows naturally rather than trying to just fight your way through it or just forcefully do it. And one of my favorites, Matthew chapter 7, verse 9 through 11. Or which one of you, if his son asks him for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? I love this. So Jesus is in the middle of a Sermon on the Mount, teaching his disciples how to pray and trust the Father. This specific passage uses an earthly father-child relationship to illustrate God's generosity. He gives us, as his children, good gifts, rather than having to force us into compliance. We have free will. God does not control us as his children. He gives and lets us choose. So when I get angry or impatient with my daughter, for example, why would I ever try to force her to do anything that she doesn't want to do? This is what truly led me to understand the boundary that fixed my clients' eating, and even my eating when I was younger. I say my clients because I'm an online fitness coach and I've been a weight loss coach since 2015. This next section is really going to help you understand how to control saying no, with your eating, with your health goals, and otherwise. When you want that snack that you know is not going to help you, wanting to skip that workout, wanting to stay up late, those urges are not moral failures on their own. They only become the problem when they take control, when they take over. This is what discipline stems from as well. It never really was about food. It's about self-respect. It's about what you really want. It's about thinking about the outcome and how much better it's going to make you feel, rather than being in the moment. It's about delayed gratification. It's about understanding how much your life can change by being that way instead of the way things are now. It's about that feeling of accomplishment. It's about self-esteem, self-efficacy, having that self-respect, keeping promises to yourself. I got pushed around my whole life, and it was partially my fault because I didn't say anything. When my friends would say something that upset me, when my parents would say something to manipulate me, when I got pushed around as the small kid all through schooling. If you don't have boundaries with yourself, you don't actually have a life. You have a series of reactions that are pulling at you at the moment. This is exactly how resentment and distrust builds, and it makes you dislike people around you. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I still, to this day, have a hard time distrusting people. One of my friends in middle school broke into my house and he stole all my things. Of course, he was my age at the time, which was like 12. So he stole all like child things. So he stole all things like video games, my Pokemon cards that are really valuable today. He stole other valuable things of my parents in my house. It was a terrible feeling. It was a violating feeling. And even worse so than that, like my dog was there. Nobody was home, luckily, because we found out later that he had knives on him when they caught him. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to trust. And to this day, since I did not have boundaries from a young age and I just developed them, I have such a hard time trusting people. In fact, it's really hard for me to even make this video right now. I step out of my comfort zone in a huge way every single time I press record, because I'm putting myself in a vulnerable spot. So this video right here is a prime example of me practicing my boundaries. Proverbs 25:28. A man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls. Self-control is the other layer to it. And this goes back to the anger and the patience. It's knowing how you're being projected to others around you, how you are able to fight those angry urges, those urges to lash out and to not say things you don't mean to people who you love. This is why the color system works so well for me and my wife, is because we don't even give it the time of day. We just walk away and separate until we're able to cool down. Corinthians chapter 9, verse 27. But I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest for preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. So Paul is talking about running a race and competing for a prize here. And he's not talking about earning salvation. He's talking about integrity, practicing what he preaches. It's biblical to be disciplined. To control yourself is to know God. So with all this said, I'm going to give you actionable steps, as I always do each video, just to help you practice boundaries for yourself. And this will double with helping with your weight loss and fitness goals too. So step 1, name one person that you can't seem to say no to, and figure out how you can start doing that, because it will set you free. Even if you just take it in small steps, like if it's a family member who's pushy, just start off by interacting one less time, or maybe saying one phrase that you normally would never say to them, in a respectful, kind way, of course. Step 2, take control of your eating habits and start tracking. I don't care if it's 1 day, 2 days this week, MyFitnessPal, Lose It, one of those apps that's free. Just put in what you're eating. Just get an idea of where you're at. It'll be eye-opening, especially if you're trying to lose weight. There was a study at Duke University, 70 participants, 3-month study. All they did was track their food, no plan, no diet, just for a period of time, people were just putting in what they were eating and they lost 5 pounds. That's all it takes. Awareness. Awareness around what you do will create boundaries that'll last long term. And step 3, nothing will help you make boundaries for yourself than controlling and having an impact on when you wake up and when you go to sleep. When you wake up has a direct impact with when you go to sleep. So set a bedtime alarm and set a wake up alarm. And don't go on your phone an hour before you go to bed and when you wake up. It will change everything. And this is something I'm still practicing myself because I find myself going on my phone when I wake up right away sometimes. But I'm telling you, let yourself go to sleep naturally and let yourself wake up naturally. If you do all 3 of these steps this week, I guarantee you're going to have a better week. So to recap, anger, impatience, and lack of boundaries all trace back to the same root. A lack of boundaries, fix that, and your food and your health will follow very quickly. Not just physical, but mental. If you made it this far, comment down below which one you're going to try first and which one stood out to you the most. I'm trying to continue to step more out of my comfort zone and help other Christian men, dads, get healthier, lose weight, live a more fulfilling life. Make sure you like the video because it's going to help show it to more people like I just described. And if you are a hardworking Christian dad, check out this video next because this is the hardest question I've asked myself. If you'd like to learn more about my one-on-one coaching, check out the first link in the description, and I'd love to reach out and see if you're a good fit to work together. I'll see you in the next one.